August 13th Village Board meeting. Trustee Eppolito, would you lead us to the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we get into the public portion of the meeting, I would like to update the public with respect to the incident that happened last night and some of the actions that have been taken since last night. But before I do that, I would like to sincerely thank the Webster Police Department, the Irondequoit Police Department, the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, and the New York State Police for coming into the village and keeping order last night during an incident which we deeply regret and shouldn't have happened, and we are taking steps to ensure that will not happen in the future. I've personally spoken to Chief Rieger on a number of occasions today. I have spoken to our code enforcement officer and asked our code enforcement officer to pull legislation that is currently enacted in the town of Greece and the city of Rochester regarding a nuisance law that this village board will be putting forward to enact to address this type of situation, not only just at the Harmony House, but such similar situations that may come into play in the future. It does involve a point system. There is a board of representatives of the village board, the local police department, and the residents. So this village board will be taking proactive steps to ensure that this type of thing does not happen in the future. I do feel that, and does the rest of this board, the four of the board members were at the incident last night. First call came out, I believe, to Jerry Eppolito, Trustee Eppolito, who then called the other board members. I happened to be in the office last night, so I was down there with Trustee Byerts and Trustee Belkane. And it is sad to see that situation happen in the village of Webster. It shouldn't have happened, and it will not be tolerated going forward. I think more responsibility needs to be looked into when any venue decides to bring in entertainment. They need to take do a little bit of research as to potential negative reactions and the impact that it will have on the local community. And because the responsibility of this board, and I know that we all feel the same way, is the health and safety and welfare of all our residents. And this is not the first time this has happened at that venue. And I want to say to the residents of this village that we will do everything that we need to do to ensure that it is the last time. And in my conversations with not only the promoter today, but also with the manager of the Harmony House, I expressed my concern, as I did earlier this summer when some hip-hop concerts were scheduled for the Harmony House. I would also commend the Webster Police Department in that they were very proactive earlier this summer at an event, and because of that, I believe there was no incidents or negative reactions that happened. Last night was a different story. They weren't notified. They were not aware of the concert last night. As a result of my conversations with both the promoter and the manager of the Harmony House, events scheduled for the Harmony House hip hop events and other events for this summer have been pulled and will be moved to other venues. So I just want to assure that is steps that have been taken. I would like at this time to ask our code enforcement officer, Will Barham, to give a brief synopsis of some of the activities and phone calls that he had today made on behalf of the board and the village residents. I asked him to speak to both of our attorneys are on vacation, so I asked him to please speak with an attorney at NICOM regarding possible moratorium on events, which we will not be doing. It's illegal to do so. Point being, we are being proactive. This board is being proactive as we should be, and I did elicit the assistance of Will and Chief Rieger. I also want to thank Ron Nesbitt for his support and Councilwoman Cataldi. We are all working together as a community to ensure that the safety and welfare of our community comes first. So, Will, at this time, if you would summarize, I'd appreciate
Tell
it.
us exactly what did happen.
I should give that.
Were there shots fired?
Yes, there were shots fired last night. What happened was, my understanding, this is speaking directly with not only the police officers, but also the manager of the Harmony House, is that there were a group of two different factions in the back of the venue. A scuffle, a fight broke out. Immediately, the security guards, I believe there were 6 security guards, 150 kids inside, I believe. The number I received from the police department, there was another 300 outside. Mace was sprayed. As soon as the mace was sprayed, some of the windows were open and people were jumping out the windows. Shortly after that, actually, a village employee heard loud noises and went outside to investigate. Started walking in the direction of the venue, and all of a sudden he heard 4 to 5 shots, at which time he obviously was thinking, as I'm sure every other resident that was in earshot of that, ran into the house and put his children on the other side of the house because they had no idea where the bullets were going. So yes, there were shots fired last night. Shortly thereafter, the police did arrive. There were 38 police officers representing 4 different police departments, the Webster Police Department, Irondequoit, state troopers. And I also should take the time to thank RTS. 2 RTS buses did come into the village last night to provide transportation for the people to leave the village of Webster. This is not the first time RTS buses and the police have been called to this venue, and the police officers did a phenomenal job last night with crowd control. And a situation like that, they're the front line. They're the front line, and I'm saddened by this and embarrassed. And quite frankly, I am a little bit mad. I'm not going to say I'm not. I'm upset, which is why we will take proactive steps, because we will not condone this. Myself and Trustee Apolito had some conversations, along with phone conversations with all the trustees today, and none of us are happy at all. And Will, so if you would give a brief synopsis, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. One thing I want to do, though, is make some preliminary comments. Obviously, we have the health, safety, and welfare of the village residents in mind when we're doing this, so keep that in mind. The other thing that bothers me is, having been a teenager myself and wanting to be a rock and roll star, I looked for venues in which we could play. And there's a lot of good kids out there, and we would encourage the young people to express their gifts and their musical talents and their abilities. However, it's the few individuals that ruin it for the rest, and that's the sad part. So those are some of the preliminary thoughts I want to make. I mean, we encourage young people to express themselves, but when events like this happen, again, it ruins it for the rest. So, as the mayor said, I spent time with the chief of police, Chief Joseph Rieger, and I asked him what we as a village could do to help them with this particular type of situation going on in the future. Obviously, we can't do anything about what happened, but we can be proactive for the future. And what it really came down to is passing legislation which would help us have teeth to address the situation when it happens and prevent it from happening again, ever. And part of that is what is called a nuisance law. Several municipalities have it on their books. Greece has effectively used it. Irondequoit has effectively used it. The city of Rochester has effectively used it. Again, sadly, I'm really sad that we actually have to implement such a law. But things being as they are, I guess moving on in the future, this is something we're going to look at. And part of it, some of the penalties that some of the business owners or property owners would be looking at is, number one, revoking of their certificate of occupancy for up to a year. Number two, closing of the building depending on the severity of it. Number three, forcing them to take measures to actually mediate their own nuisance and abate it. And then the last thing would be really the board would have the power to determine what particular action could be taken as well. There's much more language here, and I'm not an attorney and I'm not going to go into the verbatim language that's on here. However, there is enough teeth in this legislation for us to, from the future, from now looking on in the future, to handle situations like this and any situations from any establishment that continues to put our residents in danger.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have any comments from the board like to make?
Completely agree with them. We have to do something. We want people to feel that they are secure, that this is a place that they want to raise their children. We can't do it like this. We just can't do it. Can't accept that. It's very sad.
I agree. So at this time, I'll open up the public portion of the meeting. We would ask that you please give your name and address. Keep your comments to 5 minutes, please. I know it may be difficult in that.
I think I can get this done in 5 minutes.
All right.
I hope.
Okay.
First of all, I want to comment that I do share your sentiment that this shouldn't happen here, and we do need to take steps to remediate this problem and come up with a solution. However, I do somewhat disagree with the route that you're going for right now. The thing is, we need and I think you are doing a broad encompass. You're not segregating out one specific genre of music versus another.
No.
And I agree with that. I fortunately, in my day job, have the opportunity to meet with experts. And one of the experts that I actually met with earlier in the week on another case was a security expert. And some of the things that he mentioned to me in that case, I saw kind of relevant to this one. This is an expert that he not only has a security business, he is licensed by New York State to license security guards and security companies. So he's a little bit of a step up. He actually happened to call me today, and I mentioned a little bit of it to him. And I think I have some other avenues that you may want to explore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He has worked with more smaller villages. I know a lot of the areas that you're trying to parallel are the city of Rochester,
Right.
city of Greece, which are significantly larger than the village of Webster. I think we can all agree that I think everybody in this room that lives here knows every single owner of every bar in this place. This isn't that we don't know the people, don't personally know them. So I think I would like to take, rather than a encompassing penalizing step, I think I would like to see more remedial. And what he suggested is that a permit be required for events that charge an admission or an entry fee. Part of the permit process would be that you have to have a contract in place by a licensed security company. That way you ensure that you have licensed security guards there and not just, I hate to say just bouncers, but you have somebody that is required to take testings and licensing fees. And their license is on the line if they do not adhere to New York State law. A regular bouncer is not required to act under those, from what I've been told. Really where it comes in is most people aren't aware, and some establishments aren't aware, that it's not enough to have an individual guard that is licensed. The employer of those guards must be licensed with New York State. And that's where some people come a little bit off. Then what you have as part of the contract the security, that would be added on to the event promoter. And that they may have to charge more for their entry, but that's fine. One of the concerns I had was that I said, well, yeah, I know, and kind of Will mentioned on it, is I have a lot of friends that have kids that have garage bands, and they want to have a little concert up there. I'd hate to, see them priced out of it, but he had one comment for me, and it really struck home. Would you as a parent want to pay a little bit more to make sure that when your child is participating or attending that event, that there is a licensed security guard on hand, and you have a little bit better control? Would I be willing to pay $5 or $10 more for my child to go to something with a little more security? I think we would.
That's a great suggestion.
Absolutely.
We did talk about permitting also today.
The other thing that I will pass on to you, I think, I spoke with him. This person, I can give you an email with his
That'd be
contact
great.
information. He offered to give you an hour or two of consultation with him to help develop a plan that we go through, and he can give you Mirrored and other communities. He did mention that he's worked with the Village of Brockport, the Village of Spencerport for some of their events, and, Brockport has the college bar problem. And he's helped them to remediate that, and if you hopefully don't recall that there hasn't been much about Brockport in the news lately since he's worked with them. So some of these may come up. I think it might be a little bit more. I agree that something needs to be done, and certainly I will definitely email his contact information to you, because he has volunteered an hour or two to sit with you
Sure,
or the police,
and we
whoever
can-
you would like.
We could schedule him to come in a workshop and speak to not only us, but the residents could attend also.
I will work on that for your, if
I
you
really
would like to
appreciate
put
it
it on
very
the
much,
next agenda,
Mrs.
I
Reynolds.
will work with him to have him come in at that time. I just, as you mentioned, the moratorium, I really hate to just cut it out. The Harmony House does offer so much more than
Than-
just the concerts and that, so
Yes.
I would really hate to see them lose
Agreed.
any revenue. It's the chorus of the Genesee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we really want to keep it
There's
going.
not
It's a
gonna- there's-
historic building. I would like to have
Just to
them have.
clarify, there's not going to be a moratorium.
Yeah, and
There
that's
will
what,
not be.
that was actually what got me up here, is I
Yeah.
would hate to see that happen.
Right.
I know they need revenue, they want to keep up their historic building. We need to work with them rather than penalize them.
Well, I absolutely agree. And by the same, there's the right hand and the left hand. And also, in my opinion, the Harmony House needs to help themselves by being more responsible, bringing in venues that don't attract violent behavior. And it's not, there's two other
Yeah.
venues in the city of Rochester that completely stop this type of venue for the violence. And the one thing that I would say to you with respect to the security guards, and it's a great idea, that whoever is providing the venue needs to ensure that there's enough security guards there. I arrived on scene this time after the crowds had dispersed. The last time, 2 years ago, I just happened to be coming through the village with my wife and children, and it stopped and got out because I saw all the cars. And the crowd of kids, it was like from one side of the street to the other, almost right down to Main Street. And there were well over 30 police officers between the same police departments were represented last time, 2 years ago. They were outnumbered easily, 3-1, 4-1. And these young men were large in stature.
I believe it.
So I really don't think, even if you doubled the amount of security guards that they had at that venue last night, if it went south, as it did, there's no way they could have protected the Village of Webster residents, because when they disperse, they're in our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
They're running in our neighborhoods
Well, that's why I
way
locked
before
my
the
door.
police can get here.
Is as soon as I
So-
heard it, I knew what was going on.
Exactly.
And I popped on the 911, saw what was going on. I got up and locked the doors
Yeah.
and shut the drapes.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't come here. I don't want any of
Right.
it. But yeah, I see what you're saying, the number of security guards. However, the security expert I spoke with, and granted, I didn't have full information of that, and I think
Right.
a lot of this needs to be dissected after the full investigation is done.
Sure.
Is,
Exactly.
not wanting to put any blame anywhere, because blaming people it's not
Doesn't
gonna do
work.
any good in this. What we need to do is use hindsight and say, okay, we can do this better, We should do it better, we can do it better. You know?
I agree with what you're saying, and if this was the first time that this happened, that'd be one thing. But this isn't the first time. This is the third time. At some point, somebody needs to take responsibility. And
I
that doesn't
agree.
mean
Yeah.
to penalize someone. What it means to do, and I will commend the Harmony House, and I do, because they have taken proactive steps by not canceling not necessarily canceling, but the events that were scheduled
Reschedule.
for between this Friday and September 5th have been moved to other venues. So they are being proactive, and we can't ask for anything more than that.
Right, and
So-
I'll agree with you on that, and I agree that, you know, certainly anytime I had worked with them over parking issues and such,
Sure.
they were more than willing to do what they could.
Right.
However, I think we need to give them the tools. Because
Absolutely.
right now, the event promoters don't really have any rules or regulations on them other than some of the basic New
I would
York State
absolutely-
law.
I absolutely
I
agree
think
with
we
you.
need to give them the
Yeah.
tools to keep out what shouldn't be here.
Right, I agree.
Well, what shouldn't be anywhere, but we really don't want it here because we're talking about home. So.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
That was very good, Chris.
Mr. Mayor, may I say a couple of things?
Sure.
If I'm not talking about turn. One thing I would like to mention is what Chief Rieger had told me is that the violence has escalated.
Yes.
That's number one. And number two, a law, by virtue of its enactment, doesn't penalize. Those who disobey the law penalize themselves. That's all I would say.
It's a tool for law enforcement and for the village to use. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in every instance, but it is a tool. And we will discuss that, and we will have your expert come in and also educate us. I really appreciate it very much, Mrs. Reynolds.
Hi, Patty Cataldi, 33 Dunning Avenue. I'm here tonight both as a village resident and as a town board member. Obviously, the supervisor got a lot of calls today about this, of concerned residents, people who live in the town, not just our neighbors here in the village. And no one likes to see this type of press. No one likes to see this about their hometown and their place. I first want to say that the Barbershop Quartet, the group, and the Harmony House have been wonderful neighbors, and they've been a tremendous asset to our community. They run a beautiful historic building. They're trying to maintain it. I get all that. I do think, though, that the solution is somewhere in between, or perhaps a combination of Christine's suggestions and the enforcement of a public nuisance law. The public nuisance law would not only take care of issues such as this, but I think it also applies to rental properties and beyond just commercial or music venues. And it is really something that allows you to deal with it if it happens. As Will said, we're not penalizing anyone until they break the law.
Right.
Exactly.
I agree.
The piece of security I think that could be missing here is, I'm told that there were security people in the building,
That's correct.
but the events that have been egregious in the past 2 or 3 years have been in the summer. Of course, kids are out of school, they're looking for a place to go, they're looking for something to do. It's hotter than heck out right now, and there's no air conditioning in that building. So many of those who are in attendance end up on the street. And the security people who are in the building aren't doing much good to what's going on out on the street. So I would, hopefully you will consider doing something with both of the suggestions tonight, and maybe we can contain this so it doesn't happen again. Thanks.
Well, the event that was earlier, that took place earlier in the summer, I know that I spoke with a promoter and expressed our concerns because this had happened, 2 years ago. And he agreed that he would put additional security on. And one of the things that I did mention to him was, it's not so much what goes on inside. I said, there's outside
Right.
is a problem too. So he did in fact have other additional security guards outside watching the grounds also. So the point you're making is a very valid one. And I think, I agree, it's going to be a mix of two, but I don't necessarily think that not having a nuisance law on the books to be utilized when we have it available should be there.
Probably something we should have done last year.
Yep.
Yeah,
But that doesn't stop you from doing it now.
I agree.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
My name's Bruce Winters, I live on Dunning Avenue. I guess I'm not quite as kind in my words. I think you can blame people. They say, oh, well, let's not blame anybody. There are specific people to blame. The people who perpetrated the problem, and they should be blamed. I'd like to see us take whatever effort it takes. I don't think, when you have a crowd like this, and you have no idea how many people are gonna show up, and it's a crowd that brings trouble with it, I don't think you can control it. I think you're asking for trouble. It's like letting somebody walk into a bar with a gun in their hand, pocket. Maybe they won't pull the gun, maybe they will. When you let something come into this town like this to put on a performance, it's like letting somebody with a loaded gun into a bar. Something's gonna happen. My wife and I were walking by there last night, half hour before all cut loose, and we just looked at each other and we said, there's gonna be problems tonight.
Ironically,
And I know that
Yeah.
people say, well, this is not politically correct to do this. Maybe there are some people who would say, we don't have the, we'd be discriminating, we'd be doing this and that if we tried to block certain kinds of venue. But my experience of reading the newspaper in Rochester and watching the television, every place that, for instance, one example, every place that hip hop goes, there's a high risk of problems. Don't let it in. Don't keep it completely out of the place.
thank you.
Good evening.
Steve.
My name is Sam Farina. I reside at 79 Dunning Avenue. And I'm here not only on behalf of myself and my wife and my 10-month-old, who were 1 hour before strolling past the venue on the way home from Barry's after playing Trivial Pursuit there and having dinner. It did strike home, but the emotional aspect is not what I'm here to talk about. I do have a petition from our neighborhood of 26 residents that were really upset, concerned, and wish for me to represent them on their behalf tonight to express our concerns. I was glad to hear that the board has also thought about it and has come up with a potential plan to address it. And we are also in favor of a nuisance abatement type of law. We see the value in that, not only for this venue, but for any venue that may fall outside the parameters of the proposed law. And it's our hope that this is just an anomaly, and in the future that we won't see anything such as this exist again. And I'll present you with our petition, and I appreciate the board's attention to this matter.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it also.
Eric Reynolds, 64 Kircher Park. I have just a couple of comments on the nuisance law. I'm not in favor of a nuisance law per se. Our company owns property in Rochester. We've owned several properties in Rochester. The nuisance law in Rochester is abused. It may serve some purpose at some times, but in general, it's abused. It's used to attack specific individuals and companies and venues in the city. So, and the city is so much larger that perhaps they need a nuisance law. But here in the village of Webster, I don't think that that's the first thing that we should do. I think there's a lot of other things to look at before we start a nuisance law. So after that, I'm going to change direction a little bit. At the last meeting, we spoke about the well field and assessment on the well field. After the meeting, Mr. White stated that this wasn't really an assessment of the well field, but it was just some sort of insurance, for some sort of an insurance reason. So, and I took that kind of hard, because we spent a lot of money on that well field assessment. And the fact that he says that it's not worth anything, and it's just an insurance scam of some sort.
You use the word scam?
I'm sorry?
Did
He
Mr.
said it
White
was
use-
only for insurance purposes,
Fictitious.
Oh,
which is.
I didn't think Mr. White-
Was it, what was the word that he used?
Fictitious.
Fictitious, there you go. So scam, fictitious, pick your adjective. But, we spent $21,000 as taxpayers on that fictitious assessment. I find that hard to swallow. And Mr. Cahill, you also stated that those numbers in that assessment were all wrong. And well, you said that after the meeting, you said that you would address those numbers that I had quoted out of the assessment. And you also said
it's not an
that
assessment, Mr. Reynolds, it's called an appraisal.
appraisal. I'm sorry. I used the wrong word. It's appraisal, right?
Yes, sir,
So it's appraised at a certain value.
correct.
Okay. Very close to the same meaning. Okay, so you also stated that the town's overlay district is what has caused the property to be reduced in value. The fact of the matter is, in 2003, the overlay district was established. And in 2013, you changed the water. So in doing that, you already knew that there was an overlay district over that property. The fact of the matter is, you didn't look into it. And that was one of the issues that we brought up to you at the time, is why don't you wait before you jump ahead and change the water supply until you know what's going on? You didn't do that. Now we're in the point where we don't know how we're going to come up with the $700,000 approximately to close those well fields so that you could sell it for $2 million less than it was worth when it was a well field. So I'm here to reiterate those numbers. You have lost us $2 million at least, closer to $2.4 million in equity as taxpayers. We are losing that equity. We have lost that equity. There's no way to recover it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I live on Dunning Avenue also.
Good evening.
And I am going to be the Donald Trump of the group, and I'm going to say it is about the genre of music that plays at the music hall there. It's not about race. We walked by there yesterday. There were all kinds of groups there. It's not about that. It's about the music and what it represents and what they sing about, and it's about violence and guns and drugs and killing, okay? And that's going to attract the type of clientele that stands in the middle of a parking lot and shoots off rounds, regardless of whether or not they're in Webster or on Hudson Avenue. It's what I do for a living. I'm in law enforcement. I deal with it every day, and I've never expected to see it around the corner from my house, especially when my baby was with me. So I do agree with some of the suggestions that were made about security and whatnot, but I will also say it goes beyond that, because that's great for keeping the inside of the building safe. People keep their guns in their cars. They know if there's security at the door, you know. They know if they're going to get wanded or whatever, so they leave their gun in their car. And when they get in a fight, they go out to their car and they get their gun and they fire off rounds. So to me, that's a start, but I think it goes right to the genre of the music, and it needs to be excluded from this type of venue. The Harmony House has been in Webster for how long? I mean, I grew up here, it was here when I was a kid, and we never had any problems. Folk music, I don't know, opera music, rock music, never any problems. Rap music brings the problems, just in the past few years, so.
Well, there's a reason why the two large venues in the city of Rochester no longer allow hip-hop. There's a reason. It's not rocket science. It's
Absolutely.
It's violence, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rap?
Yeah, hip hop's
I misspoke, rap.
Peter Elder, 59 Dunning Avenue. I'm not going to read this. I wanted to just say, there's, and Eric and I just were talking about this over there, and, there's obviously decent people can have reasonable arguments about what a nuisance law is. I would be really wanting to see what this law looked like.
Sure.
But, the thing is, I'm very thankful that you were able to get the cooperation of the Harmony House owner. And I think that constructive relationship, you really need to foster it. That's one of the things I was going to say in here, but I wasn't going to be as nice about it. But really, I appreciate the fact you're doing that and extending your hand, because I think if you'd have done that a year ago or a year and a half ago in a very constructive way, maybe things like this wouldn't have happened as quickly or as easily. The Harmony House, I'm very privileged. This year, the Grange approved me as a member. The Grange and the Harmony House, the Courts of the Genesee, are kind of kissing cousins. And I know the Courts of the Genesee, they struggle financially. I mean, you have a building, it's an historic building, it costs a lot of money, and you have people who sing songs to raise money for that. And you can imagine that might be kind of difficult. So the group is great. The building's an asset, and you're right. Kathy, when you said that, I've grown my whole life, and that they had folk music there. So I think the issue is to engage the Harmony House in making sure that trying to make sure that this kind of music doesn't happen. That they select. I want to be careful, because we don't want to talk about this particular kind of music as always resulting in anything. But you're right. It does. It tends to. And what we need to do is try to work with them to try to say what other venues, what other avenues are out there for us to assist you with revenue. And that's one of the reasons we came to you about the issue of the grant and funding.
Sure.
Because what we want to do is try to find the ability to find ways for them to get revenue. And I know you took it off the agenda tonight. I understand your reasons. I'm hoping eventually you'll put it back on again, because
It will be back on, I guarantee you. It will be on the next board meeting.
And that's
agenda.
great, because
I
what
just
you're-
didn't feel it was appropriate
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
that
And I understand.
discussion this evening.
And I understand
Yeah.
exactly where you're coming from, but I hope you understand that the more we can assist them with finding avenues for revenue, the less likely it is you're going to have repeats of this incident. And a nuisance law might be valid for a number of reasons, and Patty brought up some great ones about rentals, but the real issue here is embracing partnerships with people, including the Harmony House, to result in these things not happening again.
Just before you go, just so you know, 2 years ago, when we had a similar incident, we did reach out. We did
Okay.
speak to them. I've spoken to the promoter and to Brian several times earlier this summer,
Okay.
expressing concerns
So have I.
and saying that, if there's something we can do, and that's one thing that Trustee Eppolito and I said 2 years ago, we're here for you. If there's something that you need, if we can do as a village board or a village to help you with your revenue stream, just call us, let us know, okay?
Well, and to your credit,
And
you
we're
just
willing
said one
to
of the
do
things
that.
you're going to do, and I appreciate the fact you're willing to
Yeah.
put that on the agenda again. I'm wondering if maybe there wouldn't be an atmosphere here because of this, an opportunity to look at other ways that the village can partner with the Harmony House, given that it's historic, and given that it is it's unique.
It's
Think
a
about it.
beautiful building.
You have a unique venue here where
Right.
people can hold wedding receptions, where they can
Sure.
hold parties, all kinds of things. So
Right.
maybe it's a matter of us working legally, and not gifting, but working
Right.
legally to try to advertise this to people and say, here's our assets. Among other assets, here's a big one we have that you can use for your venue for all kinds of things. So kind of edge out the hip hop, so we don't have to worry about it anymore.
And I think some very good suggestions were made when we brought this topic up at the last
Yeah.
workshop. Some things that could be done very easily.
Yeah, and thank you for working with them as you have.
Sure,
I
absolutely.
hope we can continue that partnership.
And I appreciate all the help that you've given them also with
Well, thank you.
with that.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thanks.
Sorry, it's me again. I just wanted to clarify something. First of all, the public nuisance laws are not just for big cities.
Right.
It's not just in the city of Rochester, the city of Greece, Brockport. East Rochester has one, they're smaller than we are.
Yes.
And part of the trigger in that is the number of calls for service, police service, to the address. And I did talk with the chief earlier today, and I believe there are 24 calls for service on that list that you just showed me.
There's 24, although there's
Starting in January of 2013.
That's correct.
But that is a trigger, and that certainly does define nuisance.
Sure.
Because for things that are on the up and up, you don't need to call the police.
Right.
That's not something that's going to happen. So I just wanted to clarify that these things are not only in place in large cities, small municipalities can use them too.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cataldi. Appreciate it. Anyone else this evening? Absolutely, Brian.
My name is Brian Moore. I'm resident of Macedon, New York. I am a member of the Chorus of the Genesee, and I am the manager of Harmony House. I understand your concerns, and I want to say to you that I did not appreciate the event that we had last night. It did not start out as an event like that. Towards the end of the evening, around 9 o'clock, the population grew significantly, not sure why. The intent was to have about 175 people there. It got up to 225, 230 is my guess, based on the fact that the room still wasn't full. I've been in there with 250 people, and you can't even stand in the room. So there was a number of people there, more than I really wanted. And my difficulty is, as some of you have stated before, we're trying to maintain the building and the facility, and it does cost, the building does cost, it's about $25,000 a year just to run the building. And it's difficult for us with the number of members we have to raise that out of dues. And to be honest with you, a lot of our events, we have the building open and available as you've indicated, but we really don't get hardly any rental business at all for parties or anything from the village. Nobody uses it. They don't. I have people tell me when they do show up, gee, this building, never knew it was here. How long has it been here? And I have to keep pointing to the sign out front that says 1899. It precedes the village by 6 years.
Right.
It's been here, and it's been this same type of activity in the building since it was built. It's what it was built for, is for social activity and for the use of the community and for the use of the people. It's just that it used to be used a lot more by the people of the village and the town, and it's not. My difficulty is when I have someone come and offer me a show, we do ask them what it is. We do ask them who's performing. My difficulty with this show is the artist and the show content changed in the last 4 days before we had the show. And to be honest with you, I don't go out and memorize and look up all of the hip-hop artists in the United States. I don't know who they are, so when someone says Little Herb is coming, I go, okay. Never heard of Little Herb, don't know where he's from, don't know what he is. Unfortunately, Little Herb drew a big crowd. And we did have security there. The reality is, and maybe it wouldn't have helped, we should have had probably more. We had 5 people, I believe. And they were licensed. I don't know whether the company they worked for is licensed, but the people were licensed. They did a good job of making sure that people inside, as other people stated, were not a problem, but it got crowded. And it's not our intent to have an event like that, and we have rescheduled, and I want to clarify that all of the hip-hop events have been rescheduled. The regular dance band and the folk concerts that this promoter also does, because he does do other events. As a matter of fact, a month ago, someone said, well, what's this group you're bringing in here? And I says, well, it's 3 bands from Webster Thomas High School, so it was a kind of a school, 2 fret and jazz fusion and a rock band and a folk guitar group. And we have groups like that. We haven't had any folk artists recently because that particular company's gone out of business. We have a Zydeco dance group that comes in there 5 or 6 times a year, but not in the summer. My difficulty is I need to maintain some revenue, and we try our best to make sure that it's good performances. This one was not what we intended. I did not like being there. I personally received a significant dose of pepper spray. I've been over in the building replacing window screens and fixing windows and cleaning up a big mess. Not anything I want to do, and not anything I want to have happen to the building, and not anything that I want to have happen in the village. It's not our intent to do that. And we will make renewed efforts to make sure that it does not happen again in the future.
And I sincerely appreciate the fact that you came before the board this evening and spoke. You're very candid and very humble, and we appreciate that. I know it probably was not easy for you to do that, and I really respect that. And I don't think there's a member on this board or in the audience that doesn't respect the fact that you did do that. And going forward, as I told you 2 years ago, we need to make an effort to ensure that the viability of that building continues with providing safe entertainment and because it's a noteworthy building. It's a beautiful building. I love that building.
Well, the reality is it's the only facility like that in the village.
That's correct, and we need to do more. I fully believe, and I concur with Peter Alder, that we need to work together closer to assist you in bringing venues in so that you can maintain that building. And one of the things that we are going to be doing is at the next board meeting, putting forth a request for the board to sign off on allowing the mayor to sign an agreement to provide monies for your building to become a historical landmark so that you can in turn turn around and seek grant money to assist you with that building. And we need to do more going forward with you. So again, Mr. Moore, I appreciate you coming in and speaking to the board and to the people in the meeting. I'm sure they appreciate it too. And I appreciate the fact that you took proactive steps to curtail what was previously scheduled. And by the same time, not hurting the other performers that don't have that history.
Well, and that's the thing I wanted to make sure, because if we did have a very all-encompassing law, I probably couldn't even have a wedding in there, because to be very honest, sometimes the weddings are a little difficult to control.
Well, we're going to have that discussion very, very soon going forward. But again, I appreciate you coming in this evening, as I'm sure the rest of the board does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else this evening before we move into board business? All right. I'm going to close the public portion. We're going to move into board business at this time. And the first thing we have is a resolution to approve the village board meeting minutes for July 23rd. Questions? I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Alito?
Aye.
Mayor Quinn?
Aye. What'd you change my name to?
Nothing.
She can't repeat it.
Remember, you're on tape. All right, next we have the village board workshop meeting minutes for October 4th. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion in a second.
October 4th?
Or August 4th.
I'm going, where are we
Yeah.
going,
It'll be
baby?
snowing, it'll be snowing soon enough.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Nope.
Motion in a second, please.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Trustee Alito?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye. All right, next we have a resolution to approve the claims and warrants. Trustee Byers and I both reviewed the bills. I did have some questions. I will be emailing them to Jake. Specifically, the one question I had was regarding the VACCON truck that we spent tens of thousands of dollars on last year, and then we're doing the same this year, so.
And you didn't? Okay, you don't, okay.
Anything over $10,000, I don't.
What about that, on the third page, there was the fence package? What was that?
I believe that was for a fence, the other question I had for Jake, and I believe that was for a fence that may have been.
Oh, was that Fritz's that we dinged?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
Is
Okay.
that for the park?
I'm not
What was
sure
it,
where
the
it
park?
was.
The Shands Park?
I don't know.
Okay. that
For
was
the
all.
field, along from,
Chance.
You guys gonna behave yourself?
I think that was it besides.
All right,
the
unless somebody has any other questions, I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve the claims and warrants.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Abolito?
Aye.
Trustee Byard?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye. All right, next we have authorization from Mayor Cahill to sign the service agreements with Waste Management for 613 Webster Road and 28 West Main Street. These are the dumpsters. It's an annual authorization. Questions?
Nope.
Yeah. Have a motion in a second, please?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
Trustee Byard?
Aye.
Trustee Abolito?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next we have the,
Attorney?
I'm sorry.
I said we don't have an attorney either, so we
No,
just,
we're sliding right by that.
it's good.
Comp and overtime report, any questions? We'll answer all of them expeditiously.
Let's see anything.
No question.
No.
All right, the financial statements are here for June and July. Anybody have any questions on those? I had a couple highlighted, but. I had some questions for Jake also on these. Specifically regarding sewage treatment plant equipment, some very high expenditures already, so. All right, any questions? All right. Entertain a motion in a second to accept the financial statements for the month of June and July.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Byard?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Abolito?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
No DPW this evening, so we'll move into the live telephone call-in. If anyone would like to call in, the number to dial is 265-3772. We would ask that you please give your name and address. The next village board meeting will be held on the 27th of this month, and the next workshop will be on September 1st. Anybody have any announcements? We have a big weekend in the village. The wine walk is on Saturday. There will be bands, the gazebo, Tuesday. Darrell, do you want to be more specific?
Party in the Park is Saturday. That'll begin about, I think, 12 o'clock. Activities for kids down at the park as well as music. And the wine walk, as mentioned, will be 5 to 8. Tickets are still available online, and I believe some of them will also be at Kittleberger's for that. Friday in the Park concert, Fat City Rocks is this weekend, and then the last one will be the following Friday on the 21st. Uptown Groove will be playing, and that will be the last Friday night concert in the park for the year. The last movie will be next Tuesday, the Lego Movie. I think there's one more. I think there's a rainout that'll be coming, but the last scheduled one will be next Tuesday.
Good evening, can I have your name and address, please?
Yes, Lori Reynolds, Judson Street. And I just wanted to say that I agree with Kathy, I believe that's what her name was, earlier in the evening, when she talked about rap music being, a lot of hate being spewed out of people's mouths, and hate and killing and drugs and all this. I don't think people need to hear that. And for young people to be entertained that way, I think you're just asking for problems. So I would like to see that not be in the village of Webster. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Anybody else have anything else this evening? I'll entertain a motion, a second, to close the meeting then.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Bill Kane? Aye. Trustee Alito?
Aye.
Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.